For the fourth straight year, I want to present my personal list of the top 10 events involving the city of Douglasville. Hi, this is City Manager Bill Osborne, and I invite you to join me for this edition of On the Agenda, where we'll look back to 2011 and talk about what I believe to be the top 10 events in City of Douglasville government during that year. Now, I realize some of you may not agree with my list, and that's fine. However, I do want to share with you what I consider to be those top 10. And we'll start with number 10 and go down to what I think was a top event for the city last year. We had some strong candidates that almost made my top 10 list. City Police Department's Youth Against Violence had another great year. A lot of statewide recognition. Construction continued, of course, on the Douglas County Adult Detention and Law Enforcement Center, which is located inside the city of Douglasville over near the I-20 Highway 92 interchange. The county did open its E911 center, and we had another good year downtown. We started the Plaza East project. Progress continued on Georgia Highway 92 relocation. Actually, we're now in the right-of-way acquisition phase. And although the Bright Star Road Connector intersection project had not started by the end of the year, we had concluded all of the intergovernmental agreements that were necessary between the city and the county governments, and we expect that project to start very soon. The city did terminate its agreement with a private firm to operate the West Pines Golf Club. And starting on August the 1st, we placed this under the City Parks and Recreation Department. During the last few months of 2011, we saw the number of rounds of golf increasing and also improvements being made at West Pines. In the city, we had a good year from a financial standpoint. That is, our status was strong, but we continued to have a lot of austerity measures in place because the economy, as we all know, remained weak because of the economic downturns that had gripped not only our community but the state and our nation. But now let's start with our top 10 list. Now, number 10 on the list is the local option sales tax. Now, for many years, the state of Georgia has collected sales tax, and while the state gets most of that money, local governments get a part of it. And every 10 years, the counties and the cities have to renegotiate the sales tax. It used to be based strictly on population, and therefore it was done after the census figures were all in. In fact, for the 2000 census, the last time we did a lost agreement, population was used in most places in the state, though the legislature had made provision for some other factors to be taken into consideration. But a couple of years ago, a lot of things changed with the Georgia legislature, and they now said that local governments have to consider 8 criteria, one of which is population, but they said there were other factors that needed to be taken into account as to how you split up your sales tax dollars. And the negotiations could start as late as the 1st of July 2012, have to be completed by the end of December 2012 because the new agreements take place in January 2013. But Douglas County, along with a very few other counties, took the initiative to start the process much earlier. In fact, we received a letter from Commission Chairman Tom Worthen on October the 3rd, the mayors of Douglasville, Austell, and Villa Rickard, to say the process was underway. And this is a fairly complicated process. And as you can imagine, when you're talking about something that's in effect for a decade, there's a lot of money on the table, as it were, in terms of how you might do the split. And for each percent in Douglas County of sales tax going to one government or another, that's worth about $200,000 for the year or $2 million during the course of the decade. So we did start the mediation process in December, and that process has continued on into 2012. Don't know what the answers will be between the city and the county, but I can assure you that my top 10 list for 2012, whatever that agreement is, that will be one of the very major events affecting the city government in the year 2012. Now, number 9 on my 2011 list was the new House district involving Douglasville. Because of the new census data, there was reapportionment of congressional seats, state Senate, state House. There is a new House seat, District 66, which focuses on Douglasville. Most of Douglasville is in this district, and most of the district is in Douglasville, and some in the unincorporated Douglas County, and then on up in Paulding County. But this will be a district that certainly the city of Douglasville is very interested in, and the 2012 primaries are expected to be the first time that this new district will have an election, and this whoever wins that election would take their House seat in January 2013. Number 8 on my list was a train wreck in downtown Douglasville. Now, in the pre-dawn darkness on January the 4th, just as the new year started, we had a train wreck. Eastbound Norfolk Southern train derailed. If that wreck had been another 250 feet to the east, we could have had a catastrophe in downtown Douglasville. What happened is the cars jumped the track in the deepest cut through the downtown area, right across from the old courthouse, and rather than rail cars carrying across US 78 into buildings, basically they just piled up on top of each other in that cut, just like a stack of firewood. And because this train wreck happened around 1 a.m., there was no traffic really on Broad Street or West Strickland Street. City Police Department, County Fire Department, the Sheriff's Office responded quickly. Other city and county personnel were involved, including our county emergency management agency and the city maintenance department. Broad Street was closed for several hours. Norfolk Southern had to bring in a lot of heavy equipment, of course, to get the wrecked train cars out of that cut. And then they had to deal with repairing the tracks. Frankly, a tremendous amount of work was done in a relatively short period of time so trains could start running again. A section of West Strickland Street was closed for several days because the roadway and the right-of-way was used as a staging area for Norfolk Southern's railroad repair activities. Number 7 on my list of events is opportunity zones. Now, the city took a major step in 2011 to enhance economic growth, and I've used the title Opportunity Zone, but there were several facets to what was done to try to put us in a position to have enhanced economic development, especially on the north side of Douglasville. In August the 22nd of 2011, the city was notified by the Georgia Department of Community Affairs that our request for an Opportunity Zone designation had been approved, and this approval by DCA verified the value of a lot of work that the city had done, and when they approved our Opportunity Zone, this covered an area 1,742 acres involving more than 7,500 parcels of property. In fact, we have the largest Opportunity Zone in the state of Georgia. Now, basically, an Opportunity Zone designation enables a local government to offer special incentive to a business to relocate in that area or to expand, and we can offer for each year for 10 years a $3,500 per employee payroll withholding tax credit for every 2 or more employees that are hired. And we believe this designation will stimulate economic growth and development on the north side, including adjacent to the downtown area. Now, in order to be able to apply for Opportunity Zone designation, a local government must do several things, which we had done. We had to have an approved geographic area, and we had to establish an urban redevelopment agency. And some months ago, the City Council created an urban redevelopment agency. The mayor and the City Council appointed 7 people to constitute the board of this agency. And the primary task of the urban redevelopment agency is to make recommendations to the City Council regarding economic development projects which the agency feels would be of value in the Opportunity Zone. Marcia Hampton, city's Community and Downtown Services Director, worked for several months in preparing this application. Then she worked with DCA in the review and the approval process, and we believe this designation is going to be of great assistance to us in 2012 and beyond. Now, number 6 on my list is the Public Safety and Municipal Court building, which I had mentioned earlier. Last year, that was the top event on my list. The construction of the Public Safety and Municipal Court building, it was the largest construction project ever undertaken by city government, and the construction basically was completed at the end of the year. But the ribbon cutting, the grand opening, did not occur until January the 27th of 2011. And based on what I've received in feedback over the months from the police department, municipal court personnel, this building has turned out to even exceed the high expectations we had for it. Now, funding essentially was through a $23 million general obligation bond referendum, which the voters approved on September 16, 2008. It's on a 20-acre site, as most of you know, on the east side of Fairman Road, south of I-20. It's a 3-story main building, some 70,000 square feet. We have an adjacent building of about 18,000 square feet. These facilities should meet our public safety and court needs for the next 25 years. And number 5 on my list was completion of the city's SPLOSH program. At the end of 2011, the city of Douglasville basically had completed the 2002 Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax SPLOSH program, which was for transportation projects and for parks and recreation projects. According to a December 19th report from the City Finance Department, 100% of the little more than $13 million had been spent on the transportation projects, and all but $165,000, less than 1%, remained to be expended out of the almost $16.7 million that we had for parks and recreation projects. Now, concerning our transportation projects, we did have to have the City Council provide some funds from the general fund reserves to complete the local match requirements for the final sidewalk projects, to complete the final work on Chapel Hill Road at Douglas Boulevard, and to finish some environmental documents for the Georgia Department of Transportation so that GDOT could proceed with right-of-way acquisition, final engineering, and ultimately construction on the Highway 92 relocation. Now, as many of you may recall, transportation projects formed a high priority last year on my list. In fact, number 2 on my top 10 list was a combination of 2 very important projects in the vicinity of Georgia Highway 5, Interstate 20, and Rose Avenue, namely that intersection of Rose, Highway 5 leading down to the I-20 bridge, and then the initial work on the on the Bright Star Road connector. Now, the big emphasis though in 2011 was on Parks and Recreation and SPLOSH, basically to finish the renovation reconstruction of Hunter Park. Last year, number 4 on my top 10 list was completion of Hunter Park's new community center. We actually completed that work right at the end of 2010, but the grand opening was in January. Originally it was going to be January the 11th, but that's when we had a lot of snowing ice here, as you may recall. So we postponed the open house to January 16th. Really didn't do the formal grand opening and ribbon cutting until February 1st. And this community center provides space for a variety of events, meetings, activities of all kinds. Also in this building is the administrative offices of our Parks and Recreation Department. Now, work continued in the winter and the spring of 2011 on the total reconstruction of Hunter Park. Both of these projects, the community center and the rest of the work in the park, were being done by Benning Construction Company. The cost was some $8 million, of which $7.4 million we had in SPLOSH funds. The remaining some $625,000 was provided by the City Council from general funds to do all the things the Council said needed to be done to be sure that Hunter Park ended up being the new park we wanted it to be. The first major event that we had in the reconstructing Hunter Park was on Independence Day. And although the ball fields were not ready because we wanted to have a period of time for the grass to grow and everything, the rest of the park was open on July 4th. Then more facilities were open by the time we had the next big event in Hunter Park, which was on Labor Day. The grand reopening of Hunter Park came on Saturday, October the 15th. A big crowd came out on a beautiful fall day to witness and be a part of this grand opening. And in Hunter Park, we have 7 youth baseball fields, 2 girls fast pitch fields, a Miracle League field for special need youngsters, a rebuilt press box at Webb Field, 2 adult softball fields, 14 batting cages, a 7-court certified tennis center, picnic facilities, 4 barbecue pits, parking for 650 vehicles, which everybody's delighted about, 1.5 paved miles of paved surface for walking, and playground facilities. Now, number 4 on my list of top events in 2011 was the January snow and ice storm. And that, we had the beautiful Christmas snow 2010. 2 weeks later, we had the ice and the snow came in, and while there was only that 2-week interval, I think most of us regarded these weather events very differently. It's kind of like, you dream of a white Christmas, but the ice storm gave us nightmares, and we had several days of really tough situations here with icy streets, cold temperatures. The snow and ice arrived overnight on a Sunday, and on Monday, January 10th, very few people were able to go anywhere in the metro area. Virtually all government offices were closed. But when you got to Douglasville, is our maintenance and sanitation department. They were able to get a small workforce to come to City Hall, so we kept City Hall manned. Police department was on duty. Greg Roberts' maintenance and sanitation department seemed to be everywhere. City TV did a fantastic job of getting out and getting a lot of coverage. We had a great programs airing on City TV showing our snow-covered, ice-covered streets, and City Maintenance Department kept our streets open to the maximum extent possible. We received a lot of compliments for the work that these city employees and our police department did under very adverse conditions over a period of several days. Now, number 3 on my list is foreclosures. Actually, number 3 last year was closely related to number 3 this year. Last year, I talked about the city's fiscal condition and the economy. For 2011, what I want to focus on is what I think was the most graphic and pronounced manifestation of the poor state of our city's economic situation, namely housing foreclosures. Now, last spring I did an On the Agenda program that focused on the local situation on foreclosures, and looking back to 2010, I noted that no sector of our economy in Douglasville had been hit harder than the housing industry. Now, a recent local newspaper article said that in Douglas County, home foreclosures were down 17% in 2011 compared with the previous year. However, that decline was most likely due to the legal issues that had slowed down bank filings on foreclosures. In 2011, there were 2,607 foreclosures in Douglas County, representing 5.24% of the housing units. The previous year, there were 3,145 foreclosures. So for these 2 years combined, we had 5,752 foreclosures in Douglas County, which was more than 11.5% of the local housing units. And during calendar 2011, Douglas County ranked 4th in Georgia in foreclosures. According to Chris Collier, Executive Officer of the West Side Home Builders Association, things could have been worse in 2011, but there were several months when banks held off on foreclosures. The hardships that hit so many local families in 2010 and in 2011 brought together individuals and organizations in this community who were determined to try to help those in need. And as many of you know, Mr. Collier was among those who played a key role in working to alleviate the problems being encountered by families in danger of losing their homes or those who had lost their homes. And the vehicle that was used to try to do this was called Piece by Piece Douglas. This was a local initiative to address foreclosure issues applicable to our community. A number of local organizations and governmental entities, including the City of Douglasville and Douglas County, came together early in 2011, resolved to tackle this multifaceted problem, and appropriately the logo for Piece by Piece Douglasville shows the front of a house formed by 3 interlocking pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. Now, one target program of this initiative was keeping people in their homes. And obviously this was important to do, but also it was important to try to have a way for people to move into homes that had been in foreclosure, and that was another objective of Piece by Piece Douglas. The third focus, as Mr. Collier explained it, was to address the issue of unemployment and underemployment. And while this tragic story continues to unfold, the good news is that there are beginning to be some signs that recovery is coming. Now, let me go to number 2 on my list, and that's the new Downtown Conference Center. Groundbreaking ceremonies for the City of Douglasville's new Downtown Conference Center were held on September 22nd. This was a special time for city leaders, concluding a journey of 4 years from the time that a master plan for downtown determined that a brand new facility was a more logical and cost-effective approach to adding conference center space for Douglasville than simply expanding the existing structure that we have had for the past 11 years in downtown Douglasville. The plans were prepared by the architectural firm of Raymond, Roush, Rector, and Reese. They've been ready for some 18 months before we did the groundbreaking, but we didn't want to move forward with this project until the last piece of the funding puzzle was in place, and that came through the response of our local legislative delegation in the Georgia General Assembly. In the spring of 2011, they were able to pass local legislation in accordance with the state law that had been approved a couple of years earlier that let us add 1 additional cent to the hotel-motel occupancy tax. Because you see, a majority of the revenue to pay for the construction and operation of this new conference center is expected to come from hotel-motel occupancy taxes as well as from rental fees being paid by businesses and individuals who have events in the conference center. No property tax revenues are being used to help fund the new conference center, either construction or in its operations. Now, because the construction industry has been depressed for the past few years, we were able to attract some major construction firms to bid on the project and to submit bids that represented a very good value to the city. Hardin Construction Company was selected. To give you a good idea of what we feel like was a real good situation for us, I'll tell you that the on-site manager for Hardin of this project is the same man who recently had been in charge of Hardin's project to build the new Cobb Energy Performing Arts Center. Now, completion of the conference center is expected late in calendar 2012, but the adjacent 300 vehicle parking deck is expected to be completed by the end of this spring or at the start of summer. We had a budget of $13 million for the actual construction and equipping of the new conference center. The project was financed through the investment banking firm of Morgan Keegan and Company. The debt is to be repaid over a 20-year period with annual payments of some $984,000, which, as I've previously noted, will be paid from hotel-motel occupancy taxes and from fees from the users of the facility. Now, the master plan for downtown, which I pointed to earlier in my report concerning the conference center, it underscored the need for us to have something in downtown that would be a destination. Pointed out that government offices in the past had been the destination focus for downtown, but the courthouse moved from downtown several years ago. The police department and municipal court moved more than a year ago. And of course, at the end of 2012, the sheriff's office and county jail will be moving to their new facility. And we believe the new conference center can be a major attraction and an anchor for downtown. Now, this building contains some 37,000 square feet, meaning it's almost 4 times as large as the current facility. In addition, I mentioned the 300 vehicle parking garage. There will be a ballroom of 7,672 square feet that's divisible into 5 separate rooms. We'll have a full-service kitchen with the ability to serve the conference center when we have maximum capacity. There will be 2 separate weddings that could be held simultaneously in the facility, each with its own designated pre-function area that includes outdoor photo opportunities. There'll be a boardroom, other meeting rooms, and finally there'll be a 150-seat auditorium that is adaptable to be used as our city council meeting room. All of us, of course, are looking forward late in the year when the new conference center will be completed. With that, I'm now ready to talk about the top event in Douglasville in 2011, which is the city elections. Now, long before qualifying occurred during the week of August the 29th to September the 2nd, we knew major changes were going to be taking place on Douglasville's political landscape. Mickey Thompson, who would complete his 3rd 4-year term as mayor at the end of calendar 2011, had announced during his State of the City address on January the 18th of 2011 that he had decided not to seek a new term as the city's chief elected official. And by the time qualifying week ended on September the 2nd, we knew that 3 incumbent city council members would not be seeking new 4-year terms. Councilman Terry Miller decided to run for mayor. Council members Roy Mims and John Shilroth decided to retire from public office. We had 2 candidates for each of the 3 city council races. There were 4 candidates for the mayor's race, which requires a majority vote to determine the winner of that race. The 4 mayoral candidates in alphabetical order were retiring City Councilman Terry Miller, Harvey Persons, who had served on the City Council more than 1.5 decades ago, Rochelle Robinson, who had served 1 4-year term on the council but did not seek re-election 6 years ago, and Ron Wilson, chairman of the Development Authority of Douglas County. Ms. Robinson was the only African American and the only female candidate in the race for mayor. Now, when the general election was held on November the 8th, 2 former city council members were elected. Doug LaGuire and Carl Pope, residents of Chapel Hill, who had left service on the city council 8 years ago, were elected from Ward 5. With his election, Mr. Pope became the 3rd African American on the city council, joining the 2 council members from the city's north side, LaShawn Burdanley and Sam Davis. Council members Burdanley and Davis, along with Councilman Larry Yockey and Councilman Dennis McLean, currently are midway through their respective 4-year terms. The 7th member of the City Council is a newcomer to city government, Mark Adams. So after almost a full year of questions as to who would be the next mayor of Douglasville, that question was answered in the runoff election on December 6th. Harvey Persons won the mayor's race. And on Tuesday, January 3rd, 2012, Harvey Persons was sworn in as mayor. Carl Pope, Mark Adams, and Doug LaGuire were sworn in as Douglasville City Council members. Certainly this marked a new day in municipal government in Douglasville. The most changes in elected leadership in more than 2 decades, perhaps more than 3 decades, changes in 4 of the city's 8 elected positions. So that's my top 10 list for calendar 2011. You may agree with all or most of my choices, or your list may be almost entirely different. I think one thing we can agree on that once again the city of Douglasville had a busy year, and thank you for joining me as we've looked back on calendar 2011. This is City Manager Bill Osborne signing off from On the Agenda. I hope you have a great day.